Thanks for joining us. This is Flynn with Don't You Dare podcast, and I'm here today joined with Freddy Alexander once again and a newcomer, Lionel Gonzalez, and we're here to talk about water. Welcome, guys.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks for having us, Flynn.
Yeah, so I've heard that water is the new gold. Have you guys heard this before? And if so, do you agree with it?
I mean, I haven't specifically heard that, I guess. Maybe, I mean, to me, it's been that way for years. Like, that's just the way I view it, is like, how can metal be more valuable to me than water? I'm kind of a water enthusiast. I mean, I love water. Like, we will die without water, but it's so fun to play in also. And so I always try to live close to some nice water that I can get in. And so is water the new gold? I mean, I think it's more important than gold. I don't know. It stands outside. Gold sort of is in an economic framework, and could be a fashion framework or a mechanical framework. Electronics uses, small amounts of gold to make electrical connections be reliable because it doesn't tarnish. I mean, it's a great metal to use for things, but it also has this value. Well, water is, like if we didn't have gold, we would not die. If we didn't have water, we would die.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So it's clearly more important. So is water the new gold? Well, I mean, probably.
It surpasses gold. The value surpasses gold. We'll say that. Water and air, both greater than gold. Both of them essential to life. So, yeah. We don't have to use that term. Water is the new gold. But is it crucial and important to us being alive and existing? Yes. So, yeah.
I think we can all agree with that.
Yeah.
So are we running out of it? And if so, at what kind of rate do you guys think?
Man, I wish I knew the answer to the question, because I've been searching for the answer because I want to know. We live in Central Texas, so we have the Trinity and the Edwards aquifers sort of underneath us coming out of the Balcones Escarpment. I don't think anybody really knows how much water is in those aquifers. Now, we definitely can see the trend, that the levels are declining over time, but I don't know if we can really know, but I want to know.
Yeah. I would say water scarcity is a big topic, and I don't know the maths on it, but I could see there being water wars and things like that in the future. The worse the scarcity gets all around the world.
For sure.
Yep.
For sure.
California comes to mind in our country. It's like the access to water there is already kind of dire. I think they're trucking a lot of it in.
From where?
People who have better access to water. I don't know the exact locations they're getting it from, but yeah.
Okay.
I feel blessed being in Austin. I feel like we're a little better, but it's kind of depressing every year in Austin how low the water gets.
Yeah. Where and why is water getting low in Austin?
Where and why? From natural processes, that's part of it. Things drying up, droughts and such. What do you think?
Well, I explore our waterways quite a lot, and so I know where I know where the springs are. I know where the water's coming out. Some of them are marked. Some of them are super well known. I mean, Barton Springs Pool. I mean, everybody at least has heard of this. If you live in Austin and you haven't visited it, well, it's hard to get in sometimes. It's very well loved, but you shouldn't live here without going to this place. I mean, it's amazing. It's kind of, one of the reasons that this place has people living in it is because this is a part of Texas where water never stopped coming out of the ground. And so over time, we can see that the flow rates of these springs is reducing and has reduced. I mean, I think, in our sort of time on the earth, that Texas is just, it gets very hot and dry and it dries up, and then the water comes in massive amounts in a short period of time. And so it's kind of a boom and bust cycle of the water coming down, but it's always, eventually stored in the aquifer, any that's left over. And the aquifer levels are going down. The aquifers are where the water is hydraulically pushed out of the Balcones escarpment along, Del Rio, San Antonio, Austin, Waco, Dallas. That's the arc, where the ground is broken and most of the water comes out. And so we see springs along the escarpment. I mean, some of them have Jacob's Well in Wimberley. Like that spring, has only flowed intermittently over the last few years. And right now, I think right now it's not even flowing. Like you can't get in that water because it's stagnant. It's just sitting there.
Super shallow. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of, more recent. I watched the levels of like Barton Springs and San Marcos Springs, and you can definitely see the spiking up and down. Was going to be more hydraulic pressure when there's more rain and more water going in. But how much is under the ground? I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
Who knows the answer to this? Does anyone know the answer to this? Because it's clear, like when you see, there's companies who drill water wells all over. So they're putting the straws in, they know how far they have to go in all the different areas. They can see like at certain depth, if the water level drops below that, then that well stops working and it has to be deepened.
Yeah.
So this is not something unknown. It's not kind of, we can't see through the ground. Well, we're kind of,
Some people have instruments to see some of it.
yeah, we're kind of
requires
peeking.
special technology.
Right, but we're kind of peaking with the straws, and it's absolutely measurable.
Yeah.
There's no question. So the well drillers know
The water table.
Yeah, and it's going down over time.
Yep.
Like the recharge of the aquifer rate is lower than the rate of increase of use as our population grows in Central Texas. So we have a lot of water right now. I'm not worried right now that we're going to run out of water, but in the future, I don't really know. It's important to be close to a good supply of water.
There are techniques to harvest water, rainwater, catchment, all kinds of things like that tie into that conversation. Like, is it just left up to the government and the city to do all that stuff, or do people need to empower themselves to be like, we are water harvesters, we actually help add on to the water table or the water aquifers, so it's not just relying on those known things
I kind of think of it as
prevent
just like
scarcity.
yeah, like a right of survival. If water is falling out of the sky, I mean, look, I kind of
Exactly.
get that they want to limit rainwater collection. The theory is that, okay, the rainwater falls on the ground and then it goes into the aquifer. So if you catch the water and you divert it for your own use, you're sort of keeping it out of the aquifer. Okay, well, that's the theory. I think the underlying reason, as I understand it, and I may misunderstand, but to me that's crazy, because the amount of water that falls on people's roofs. I mean, any water that they use from there, they're just not using water that's stored in the aquifer. And I think the aquifer water is more precious. It's more valuable because it's been naturally filtered. It's been kept out of the sunlight. It's clean. And rainwater, depending on how you're catching it, how are you storing it, how long are you storing it, what are the temperatures? I mean, what do you have to do to that water to be able to safely drink it? Well, sometimes not much and sometimes a lot, but the aquifer water is pretty much, unless something has happened after, from the Industrial Revolution on, there could be natural things. There can be radioactivity. There can be mineral deposits where water is too mineral heavy with something that you can't drink too much of it. But, certainly the Trinity and the Edwards aquifer water is clean enough to drink. Like humans can live on this water. You can drink with it, cook with it, do anything with it. You don't have to process it or treat it. You don't have to.
Has more minerals than like a bottled water you got from the store.
It does have a lot of minerals. In fact, I lived for a couple of years close to here in a place that there was well water, and there was a lot of lime in it. It was that kind of water where like any bathroom or shower is like got the hard water deposits and stain. You've got to constantly clean it off and wipe it down to keep it from just making water rocks, on your stuff. And to drink it, felt sort of like drinking sand water. Like it was just so much minerals. I was like,
off.
this probably is too many minerals. Like I probably don't need this much limestone in my body.
And calcium buildup.
Yeah, so I started filtering. and that was good. But it definitely the water coming out of the springs around here doesn't. That was a really hard water well.
Yeah, that'll happen around these parts. Central Texas, a lot of bedrock of limestone and such.
What about data centers and water?
It's a new hot topic.
Oh, data centers. I mean, I don't know. Like, do we really need to worry about this? Here's why. Because, in order for a data center to use water, you have to turn it on. So like, where does that power come from? I mean, do we have that? It's a whole nother topic, but I'm not convinced that there's enough energy really to turn all of the ones on that they propose
Coal power
to build.
is what I would think.
Yeah, so whatever. So they use water. They do use water. I don't really know how much water. I think it's something like
absorbent amounts to cool stuff is what I've heard, but I have not looked into it.
It's like one data center is the amount of water use of like 50,000 residential single-family homes. It's something on that order of magnitude. I think. I can't even cite a source, so I don't know. But that's in my, when I try to process it, I'm like, okay, 50,000 houses. There's like, about 2 million people in the metropolitan area that we live in. So, are we gonna? It's a lot. It's significant. We shouldn't just hand wave it away. I think that they should. It should be like air conditioning. It's a closed loop. You don't let the chemicals out. So if you're going to use water for some kind of cooling system, well, you need a cooling system that's going to circulate a liquid, and it could be water. That's fine. Fill it up and use it, and then don't let it leak out. Don't just pour it out on the ground. So there's really no technical barrier to that. I mean, like everybody's house already pretty much, if you have air conditioning, or if you have air conditioning, you have a closed system.
Refrigeration,
moving heat around. So in other words, there's not a technological barrier. It is probably more expensive, and that's why they want to do it. Okay, so these are the people who are saying, well, we have the most money, so we should have things the way we want it. Are at the same time saying, but we couldn't possibly recirculate water in a cooling system. I mean, this is such basic technology. So it's a little bit offensive. I think, that it is wasting water to have an open loop cooling system. But, I've never seen the plans for these things. I've never been inside a data center. So, like I'm getting some things about them, but, I don't know how much water I've never seen their water intake. I've never seen a water exit. I don't, I'm sure it's been measured. I'm sure there's people who know, but I don't know if there's enough power to turn them on. All the hardware that they put in there. I mean, computer hardware doesn't have a very long lifespan in terms of, by the time you get, a year out, if it's phones have kind of caught it. We're diminishing returns on phones. So there's not a huge improvement every 6 months or a year. But certainly after several years, if we look at, computer processors, graphics cards, the things that the data centers are using, those become obsolete pretty quickly. Certainly by 5 years, they'll be ripping it out and putting whatever we have in 5 years from now. They'll need that, or they'll want that, or it'll make sense to do that. So,
which is more power, more heat, more need for the cooling.
More power, more sure. But I think the cooling system is not, it's not the barrier. It's just irresponsibility to not have a closed loop.
Sure,
that's my opinion.
They're putting the cutting edge.
That's my opinion.
Tech in front of the nature sustainability thing.
If we just take the water and spill it out on the ground, we're all going to pay for that because nobody escapes the cost of using water at a higher rate. Then it falls out of the sky, and we could do that, and then we're all going to die. So, it doesn't matter to us. Well, that's a terrible attitude because people are coming after us, and they're going to need water too, and we should leave some behind. And it's like grossly irresponsible to create a huge, anything that we need a cooling system to keep it at a normal operating temperature and to not have that be a closed loop. That's a crime against humanity, and it's just because people don't want to pay. There's some people, they just don't want to pay. There's no other barrier. There's no
Yeah.
technical barrier.
We got to ram this new tech through really quick. It seems like a race. And if we believe what they're saying, the scary stories, it's like some of this is like clear cutting forests to put this giant, building over it. So that's already a huge thing you're going to pay for. You already ruined something, a natural resource. But now we're adding this tech. We need more water, more energy, more than we've ever used before with these kind of buildings. They're telling us it's like the cutting edge. So it's hard for me to wrap my head around it. And I don't know if I believe all the stuff I've heard about it yet. But yeah, it could be a nightmare. But it could also be like maybe there's a smart way to do data centers and they're just not thinking about the natural living space that they're inhabiting. They're not thinking about sustainability and the future and beyond because they're trying to get something very new and very big in before anybody can stop it or put like regulations on it or anything because they have a lot of money and they can make things move fast.
What are some of the nightmares that you've heard about it?
I mean, the clear cutting a forest to put one of these in is already like the beginning of it right there. Depending on what's around that area, waterways and stuff, polluting the natural resources that are there to build the thing. That already is, yeah. And if we're going to do this on a mass scale all over the country, and it seems like, if you believe what they're saying, it's all over Texas, it's all over the country. So I don't know. I haven't looked too deeply in it to tell you too much on it, though. But yeah, that's enough for me to be like, that could just keep on spiraling and getting worse. And then if they're saying that their water needs can't be met and they need to think of a reason to do that, that sounds pretty scary too, because we already have issues like that with drought and water scarcity without this new data center problem.
Yeah.
I don't think they're adding anything back in to the environment to compensate for what damage they're doing, if this is all going down the way I think.
Yeah.
I don't think they're trying to integrate into the natural world that they're going to put it in. I think it's just, we're going to superimpose this on top of that, disregard the natural thing, and we'll just input anything we need. We'll just get it imported into here. Never mind the way the natural flows are around there, the natural resources, how it works, the disregard to that, and we'll just force it in there. And that usually doesn't work out.
Right. So what about, have you guys heard about, we're talking about Central Texas a little bit ago, to talk about that a little bit more. Have you heard about the rice farmers in South Texas taking water from some of the other places? I've heard that they were taking it from Lake Travis for a while, and that was depleting the water source there. Have you guys heard anything about that?
No.
I believe it. Yeah.
But, I mean, I guess it's a thing. I mean, farmers need water. The rivers flow towards the Gulf, and so, it's a natural to take water out from it. I really don't know anything about rice farming in Texas. Like, I'm aware that that's a thing, that's happened, that people are growing rice here, but I don't know anything about it.
Diverting the flows of water and sending it to new directions is definitely like an ancient thing. It's been going on for a long time. I think some beavers are doing it right now. But yeah, there's like smart ways to do it for sure. And then there's, careless ways to do it without understanding the big picture. I'm going to take this and not think about how it's going to affect anything else.
What are some of the smart ways of doing it?
Regenerative methods. Like he was talking about closed loop systems earlier, stuff like that, recycling. So if you can do more than just one thing with this resource and think about your neighbors, community, future generations when you use the resource, that's the beginning of the smart thinking, because you're not just thinking about yourself and the goal that you have. You're thinking about how will this keep the natural environment around me thriving as well, because I need more than just myself and my little plot. I'm actually connected to other plots. And kind of just the way natural systems work, like the way a rainforest works. without human intervention, a rainforest is doing all kinds of composting, recycling, reusing, all the stuff that we thought was cool when we were kids. Maybe we learned some of it, but like still applies to everything today. Even big tech stuff and new ideas in building, water harvesting, all of that stuff. Let's see what he has to say. I probably have more ideas on that, though. Some good techniques.
Some good techniques of,
I guess, water. Are we talking about water usage specifically?
Usage.
And yeah.
well, I mean, I think it's a good idea to, try to use it as many times. Like maybe I take a shower in water, and then the water is, obviously I'm never going to want to drink that, but it's just kind of a little bit of soap and just rinsing off my soap. That could be used for cleaning something or watering trees, or you know what I mean? Like it can be used 2 times before,
Totally.
I'm done with it. So if water's just used 2 times, then we're getting double the utility from the same amount. So, I mean, all of that stuff makes sense. I mean,
Have you heard of Brad Lancaster?
no, what's Brad into?
Water harvesting, and he
Okay.
lives where it's very dry. I think it's somewhere in Arizona. He's into permaculture, and his whole house is like a museum for people to learn techniques on how to build your house, how to orientate everything. So you're harnessing wind, harnessing sun, harnessing shade, and definitely the water is like how he got famous, of all the things he did in Arizona, to be like, well, you can actually grow lush gardens and like things that look like tropical and thick in a place where everyone else's house looks like a fucking desert wasteland. So yeah, he's cool. I've seen his house, and he uses his gray water for lots of different things, and he has like a setup he's built, all kinds of custom systems, like multiple little hose systems, very convenient and very nice, but also not expensive, and looks like something a little garage project anybody could do, DIY stuff. But he's doing such smart stuff with it and saving money, saving the environment at the same time. He'll plug a hose into a different chute, and that means it's watering this part of the garden, or maybe it's going to the laundry stuff or dishes or something. And that's just one idea. But he goes in, he's like super nerdy about it, like this super geek about energy orientation and just harnessing all of it to the most you can. His garden beds, instead of being like flat or raised beds, are inverted, and they're like sunken in beds. And whenever he gets just the littlest bit of rain, he's collecting that in these little pockets. And over time, it just looks like a different part of the world. You're like, this is not the desert in Arizona right here. Slowly but surely, he's inspired his neighbors and his community to kind of follow these techniques, doing things like street curbs. They'll cut them so that any little runoff water that runs on the street, it goes into these little cuts that they made and starts giving water to their garden, to their house. So they're capturing it little by little in all these different ways, and it accumulates. And I see Austin sometimes with all this water going into the sewer, and I think about, like, is this the best way? And then where does that water go? And what are these treatment centers that are supposedly making the water safe for us? Is that the smartest way? So a bit of a rant on that. But Brad Lancaster, Rainwater Harvesting in Dry Lands, I think is one of his big books, and cool guy to look into. Still doing really interesting stuff and educating people on that.
Yeah,
Awesome.
that's cool. Yeah, Brad Lancaster. Yeah, well, here in Austin, our street runoff pretty much goes into where there were creeks before there were houses, and then into bigger creeks, and then into the river, and it just kind of goes back into the cycle. So, that's actually a pretty good way to do it. The drawback is that, if there's a new street, obviously that's the asphalt is going to be releasing, petroleum derived materials into them. It's going to spread that everywhere. If there are pesticides, if there's a lot of poop, it's like that all gets into the water. And so we definitely,
I hear there's a high content of pharmaceuticals.
well, yeah,
Pretty wild, huh?
So yeah, nobody wants to be drinking the water from the creeks going into the river in downtown Austin. Like, don't drink that water. Don't. Probably don't let your dogs drink it. I mean, if it's spring water, it's probably fine. But if it's coming out of a creek, don't. Yeah, you don't want to drink that.
Yeah. That's like the first flush of the filtration before it gets cleaned.
Speaking of pharmaceuticals and getting into water, have you guys heard about in the Pacific Northwest of the opioid
Epidemic.
that that the opioids have gotten into the water so much so that it's starting to damage the life in the ocean?
Wait. So what you're saying is that we're at a point where people are taking so much opioids that it's getting into the water supply, and they're finding it in water. Would it be like where a municipal water supply? There's opioids in the water.
No, but where the water, what I've heard anyway, is where the water is getting out into the ocean.
So opioids being introduced into the oceans. I have not heard of this.
I'm wondering how it gets in there too. I'm trying to figure out, is it like needles and stuff in the street and it filters through them? Are people excreting opium into their bath and toilet water? Or I'm just trying to figure out that first step too of like, how does it get into the sea?
Well, any wastewater, like the city of Austin is pretty typical, I think, in this way. Like our sewage is pumped to a central location for areas. Like there's a bunch of them around, but they basically take all the water that we've used in our houses. That's anything that's gone down the drain in your house or at a building or wherever. It goes in the pipes. It goes to the wastewater treatment plant, and they have, they do a bunch of things. They have settlement tanks. They're taking out any solid material, any particulates, turbidity. They treat the water. They introduce bacteria to process certain things. I mean, they do whatever they do, and I'm not a wastewater treatment expert. I just, like I hike around rivers, springs, and I look for where the water comes and where it goes. And so I've seen a lot of them, but I don't always really know exactly what goes on in there, but I can see the discharges from them. And what
Isn't there a layer of heat in that process too?
Is there a layer of maybe? I don't really know.
The bacteria thing is interesting. I know that is used for, it's like a biological filter and they use all kinds of different stuff for that. But I was wondering if they
I just
heat
noticed. I just noticed that where it comes out and it's reintroduced like into a creek bed, and it's maybe combining with water that's already there. Maybe it's really dry and the only water is just what's coming out of the treatment plant. Well, it looks clean. It doesn't have bad smells. I mean, I think Austin specifically is doing a really good job of cleaning the water that it's reintroducing. But I do notice that any place there's wastewater treatment being reintroduced into a natural waterway, that it's like the algae looks different. It's like there's more nutrients in that water than there is in like the water that's just stored in limestone under the ground that comes out, or rainwater runoff from the top. That I can always tell, like I'll see further downstream, I'll see this kind of algae, and I'm like, oh, the used water is coming in around here somewhere. I can tell because of what's growing here, and there's always more nutrients, and I think, that's a problem. A lot of it is like fertilizers. I know that pharmaceuticals do get into that water, so it makes sense if there's a lot of, if opium is a big part of the pharmaceuticals that are being used, then that's going to naturally end up in the water on the other end of the cycle. So I don't know. Could we do better? I mean, we could clean it enough to just make it drinking water again. I know it's psychologically, it's very shocking, but there's places who are, they already do this because they have no other choice, because there is not enough water. I don't know if we're doing this in the United States yet, but I'm sure it's being talked about. I know that it's being talked about. It's probably coming if it's not here already somewhere, but and I think it's okay. I mean, it's essentially if you just separate water molecules and you put them together, then you have water, and water is water. It's not gonna, I don't know. I mean, we can hold our heads around the crystal and put it in a vase and pray to it. It's argued that has an effect on water. I'm not going to speak to that because I don't know. That's the realm of mysticism. But, it doesn't matter what's happened to the water. All the water can be recycled. Water is probably one of the easiest things that we can recycle. We just don't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, have you guys heard of Dean Kamen and something he developed called the slingshot?
No. What is this?
Me either.
Okay, so he developed this system where you can put in pond water. You can put in pretty much any kind of liquid that is water-based into this slingshot, and then it can come out on the other end so clean that you can shoot it intravenously.
Well, that's pretty clean. I've never heard of this. I'm curious.
Is it more clean than the reverse osmosis stuff that everybody loves?
I think so.
Okay, that's interesting. With the reverse osmosis, I felt like it was so clean that nothing is in it. Like you do tests on it, and it's like there's like no minerals or no anything in it. It's just it's just water, like a transparent. It's a vessel ready to hold something, but it's not holding really anything. Interesting. Maybe just the molecules itself, I guess. But I haven't heard of the slingshot. Sounds interesting though. What does it look like?
Well, it's about the size of a refrigerator, and he is partnered with Coca-Cola because Coca-Cola is all around the world, especially and even in third world countries where
they use a lot of water. Water is important to Coca-Cola.
True. But he partnered with them because he can get into these third world countries and set up these slingshots in these places that need it desperately. Have you guys heard of other projects that are helping with cleaning water?
I don't. You know, years ago I volunteered with an environmental organization, and I'm not going to say their name because they definitely, like, part of the thing was that it's, you know, they have a small space. It's very overwhelmed if there's any kind of publicity. But anyway, whatever. So our mission was to educate people about the environment, to introduce them, like take them into the environment. Like, we're in a forest, you know, like this is a swamp forest. Like, this is the natural environment. Welcome. There's no air conditioning here. Like, you can spend the night in a treehouse. So that was the goal, is to just educate people about the environment and show examples. Like, we have a gray water system that we're actively using, and it was built here, and we'll show you all about it, and you can help us maintain it if you want to, whatever. It's just a chore that we have to do. And we composted, and we did a lot of things, and we were trying to educate people about it. And where am I going with this? That's just sort of my experience with it. Just sort of, you know, reusing water. I guess
Contaminated water.
Yeah,
if you're in that situation.
I learned more about filtration and water treatment sort of before and after that time, because I worked in building, and I used to, you know, any client that I had, I always, you know, everything gets written up, and then I'm like, oh, and if you want an RO filter, like, if you buy the equipment, I'll do the installation for you at no additional cost, because I think water is so important. I think everyone should have this. You know, I think that it makes, you know, that everyone just should have this, and I believe in it enough that I'm willing to give away my time to help you have it. And no one ever, I only had one person ever do it, but they paid. Like, they didn't even want it for free. They're just like, well, why would I not have that in my kitchen? You know, mm-hmm. So we added it in. So I don't know.
I know there's organizations that travel around and help people who are in need. I don't have the names, but different practices to filter the water naturally. Things that come to mind is like just using natural elements to filter stuff, different types of gravel, different grades of gravel, so it gets smaller and smaller. Then you get into like sand, which is super small particles, that filters it again. And then you get into certain types of plants and bacteria that the water can then go through again, and that's like multiple stages of filtration.
And charcoal.
Charcoal is another good
You know,
one,
I mean,
yeah.
Everybody knows, like, oh, I buy a charcoal filter cartridge and I screw it into my refrigerator.
Yeah, or I poisoned myself and I went to the hospital and they used charcoal to save me.
I mean, charcoal. Okay, well, the charcoal that we're talking about that's in a charcoal filter that you screw into your refrigerator, that's the same kind of charcoal that you get from burning wood. You know, so I mean, anybody can, like, you can make your own.
So nature provides, is what you're saying.
It does, and just like you're saying, you use larger media like gravel or rocks to take out big things, and then sand for kind of small things, and you can go all the way down to, you know, you can have a layer of charcoal.
You can also
literally
get that
just
fresh water at the very last stage and be like, I'm also just going to boil it. I'm going to make a fire and I'm going to boil it just in case.
well, the biological, but there's biological material in water. There's physical material in water, which would be the turbidity, and then there's chemical. And all three of those different types of material that we need to clean out of water, there's different ways to clean each of those things. And a lot of filters, they do 2 out of 3, and then another way does another different 2 out of 3. And so, but the biological is a very specialized, a very, separate thing. And viruses and bacteria and amoeba and protozoa, they all have a size that's bigger, much bigger than a molecule of water. So it's possible to kind of mechanically take them out, but cooking is, boiling is good. UV light is good.
Yeah.
But yes, we have to pay attention definitely.
What about those clay or terracotta type things? Those have been used for a long time. Have you seen those as just a water filter, and it eventually weeps from the bottom of I think it's terracotta.
It sounds great. I don't have any experience with
I've
that.
seen
so I don't
some
know.
that look like that Berkey filter, but they're just clay terracotta type system. So, and I drank the water from it. Seemed normal to me. I was like, that's fucking cool, easy, clever. But yeah, those things are porous. They don't look like it, but eventually water slowly weeps through there, and I'm sure it's filtering out a lot of tiny little particles.
Are you guys seeing a lot more usage of things like a Berkey? I know you've got one, Lionel.
Yeah, I do see some friends and family, not everybody. I've seen people do stuff to their faucets and showers where they just put those little attachments on them that are maybe carbon-based filters. I don't know, but
I've got one on my shower.
yeah, cool.
Probably for the chlorine.
Yeah,
They're marketed for the chlorine, and they actually work for that. I mean, maybe not. I don't know how long. I guess it depends on how much chlorine there is, how many showers you take. But yeah, those do pretty good. Yeah. But I don't see a lot of, I mean, I think people fall in 2 camps. They don't think about it. They drink the tap water. It's fine. And I mean, tap water in the United States is mostly safe. I mean, I think this. If I don't have any water is better than no water, and the tap water is fine. There's nothing immediately that's good. I mean, it has to meet a standard. There's not going to be biological things that hurt you. There's, I think there's components in it that over decades or a lifetime is probably not good if you always have this like the same. Water from outside is like that too. It's like if it has a bunch of magnesium in it, if it's super magnesium heavy water and you're drinking a gallon of that every day because you're outside and it's hot and a hot climate, that's not going to be good for you, So
Yeah, toxicity level once it's so high.
Yeah, I think there's people who think like, oh, I should filter the water and clean it, and there's other people who don't. They just don't. They're not worried about this. Like they don't think about this.
It depends what the source is of water they're getting it from.
But
it could
really
be right. If it's mountain spring water, like no wonder you don't filter your water.
Yeah.
You don't have to.
What I do see in my opinion, way too much of is plastic bottles with water in them, and that's what people drink.
Yes, and then they put them in the freezer or refrigerator, and then they put them in their cars, and the heat and all that stuff makes it even worse.
Yeah, I think that
leaching it into the water.
I think that it's not good, and it's also really expensive. It's like in the United States, it's all it permeates the landscape of media. The price of gasoline. Well, already if you are buying water in any kind of container from a store, I mean, you could get the 5-gallon ones. That's where it's RO filter water, and you can, they'll fill it and you take a whole bottle, or you take your own and refill it. I mean, that's not even on the same order of magnitude as buying like bottles of water with a name brand on it. And, that's more expensive than gasoline per gallon of water. And yet we're obsessed with the price of gasoline for our cars, and we don't even consider the price of water for our bodies. And it doesn't have to be that way. But that's what I see a lot of. I don't see a lot. I mean, RO filters infiltration is way more. I mean, people are more conscious of it. I see more of it in houses. It's more of a standard feature. Years and years ago, I was trying to get that going. That's why I would tell people, I was like, look, I'll give it to you. I mean, you got to buy the filter, but I'll include it in the deal, and it's going to be in there.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Because we need that, and so because don't buy bottles. It's just don't do that. It's cheaper. You'll save money. So when I worked with the environmental organization, I met a woman from Florida who worked in a medical office, and it was owned by her family. They were doctors and they owned this medical office. And, she wasn't, the environment and all that wasn't on her radar. She came there because she came with her little sister who was like at the end of being a teenager. And there was other reasons why they came to visit our organization, but she was sort of there for her sister. She wasn't really interested in what we were doing until she was there for a little bit. But, we just were in conversation and I thought she was cool. And she asked me, she said, and she told me, she's like, I don't really think about all this stuff. I just came for my little sister and she told me the story. I'm like, awesome. That's cool. She's like, but hey, all this has got me thinking, well, what could I even do that would even make a difference? I mean, I'm just one person. And I said, well, we could start with that plastic bottle that you're drinking water out of if you want to. And don't get me wrong. Like I'm not judging whatever, but we talked about plastic, we talked about water filtration, we talked about the economics. It's like more expensive than gasoline. And she says, okay, cool. So she kind of took that in, she thought about it. And she was like, well, my family, we have this medical office in Florida and we get everybody who comes in, we give them a bottle of water. And I want to change that because I'm hearing what you're teaching me about filtering water and the problems with plastics. I mean, we are a medical facility, so we want everybody to have the healthiest, option available. But my father, he doesn't care about the environment. Like he'll get mad if I even talk about that. So how, what do I even do? And I said, well, don't talk to your dad about the environment. Don't talk to him about any kind of hippie stuff, whatever. Don't talk about crystals and filtration or whatever. Just talk to him about money. If your father's, he's like coming from business, then just talk to him about business. Like, how much do you think that you spend buying bottled water in a year for the medical office? And she thought about it, and she managed the place, so she knew the numbers, and it was something like $4,000 a year of bottles of water that they bought. And I said, okay, well, you can get the filter for less than $400. And then you got to pay someone to come out there and install it and set it all up and all that. And then you're going to have, you need to have like cups or containers or whatever. You got to have something for people to use it. So you got to figure out that, what is that's going to make sense. And
reusable container and canteen.
Yeah, something. And so, she really listened to that and she went away. And then I saw her again. She came back sometime later and she said, I have to tell you, like, I was so inspired when I was here last time, and what you taught me about water was really helpful. She goes, I went back and I talked to my dad and I just showed him the budget that if we did this RO filter and we started, I think they made coffee mugs with their name on it or something, and they would give them away or whatever. It was like promotional material, went to advertising budget, and they saved thousands of dollars a year by making the water there and not buying the bottles. And her dad went for it. He was like totally sold. He's like, oh, it's cheaper, then that's what we're doing. Nice. And that's what he did. She goes, so I wanted to take it a step further. She goes, and so one of the things that they would do is like if you were born with like a cleft palate and you need like maxillofacial surgery, like that's one of the things that they did. And sometimes they would meet kids and maybe, like even if they have insurance, maybe they don't have insurance. If they do, maybe they still can't, their family can't afford to do anything about this. And so she went to the doctors and she was like, the water is important and we're able to do that. And I think that kids are really important. It's not fair if their parents can't afford to fix their face. And so if they come here, then I want y'all to give it to them. And they were sort of an uproar. Well, that's a lot of money that you're talking about, and we can't. And she's like, yes, you can. And if you don't, then I'm leaving. I'm not going to work with y'all anymore. because I believe in this and it's easy for us to afford it. And you can do it or not do it, but I'm going to make a choice based on what you do. So they decided to do it. And so now, a kid would come in and they would find out what's available, what can be done. And then they're sort of like, well, what's the cost of this? Like, what do we need to do to get this done? And the answer is like, you don't have to pay. Like, we're going to give this.
Beautiful.
So I felt like that was a great success, even beyond water, but it's, I don't know, like, never give up, because this is a person who initially was just like, it's not that they didn't care. It's just, it wasn't in their thoughts. It wasn't in their radar. It wasn't something they were concerned about. They initially start talking about the environment or conserving resources, and, people are just like, oh, propaganda, so I'm turning off, And so someone who just wasn't into it, kind of saw the benefits and got into it.
Saw the value.
Yeah, and now
used economics to get the guy on board.
And so now thousands of plastic bottles are not, ending up in the ocean.
I think that would apply to like all over the map too. What was done there could be used in so many different situations. I feel like you had something. No? What about fluoride in the water? It's kind of controversial.
I think that fluoride is, that's it. When I started learning about reverse osmosis water, I went on that journey because I had a good friend who was like a massage therapist. They were into yoga. Like, they were really cool, like a good person. There was a multi-level marketing company that was doing water filters. Like, I'm just going to call it woo-woo water. I'm not going to say a name, whatever. But it was $4,000 for this thing. And I was like, my friend was not a person who can be spending $4,000 on a water filter. Like, that doesn't make sense. But she asked my opinion. What do you think about this? And I was like, well, I don't really know. And so I had a friend who was a neuroscientist that worked at Mayo Clinic. So I talked to her about the body and water. And then I had another friend and client that was like a Western trained internal, I don't know what would be the proper nomenclature, but a doctor who's an internist who's professionally, trained and employed. And then they sort of left, hospital medicine to do a private practice because they felt like the insurance companies were too involved with sort of directing patient care rather than the doctor side. So I talked to him about, water pH and the body and water and the body and water. And then I found someone who was like worked with municipal, like the water treatment for the supply water that we can drink from the taps, to kind of develop an opinion on this $4,000 water machine. And so I felt like I did a lot of good investigation from people who knew way more. Did
you try a glass of water from this $4,000 filtration system?
Yeah, I've had it. Okay. I've had it. No, it's good. I mean, it tastes good. I mean, the taste of water is only a part of the water, but it's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. And if you're a person who, you want to drop 4K on a water filter, like go for it, support that, because there's no reason not to do it unless, if you're sacrificing healthy food to have a $4,000 water machine, like there's other ways. And this is what I came back to my friend who'd asked me the question. So I went on this journey talking to people who are experts on the body, on water, on, they're scientists and doctors, and they're smarter than me and they're better educated than me. And they had great answers for me, and they helped me understand water in the body in a way that I wasn't even approaching before. And I came back to my friend and I'm like, look, you can get a reverse osmosis water filter that you can stick in your kitchen. If it's a rental, you can take it with you, and you can just take it out and take it with you when you go. But it's $350, versus $4,000. And the difference between those two isn't something that your body is going to notice. They're both great. There's no reason not to do either one of them, except, if you're not sort of generationally wealthy, like $4,000 for a water filter, well, you just get the $350 one and you're going to be in the same place, with the quality of the water. And so I told her not to do it. I told her my opinion was just spend 10% of that and get something just as good.
Sounds sensible. What about the fluoride thing, though? Like, I'm wondering, do you think, like, if there was no fluoride in the water, Are our bones going to deteriorate and our teeth going to deteriorate? Because some people hold that belief about it.
You know,
and then others are on the exact opposite.
I'm pretty sure that this has been studied by actual scientists. And my understanding of looking at that and, you know, what do I do for myself? I think fluoride is a mineral that's needed for healthy teeth. You can, like I've gone to the dentist and they give like a gel that's fluoride, you know, put this on your teeth before you go to bed at night. Okay. So I kind of suspect that fluoride is really important to mineralize bones and teeth specifically, but maybe we don't need to ingest a large quantity of it, you know? So I think amount matters, and I don't know. It'd be great if I could just, you know, soak my teeth in fluoride and just not drink it, because it's for the teeth, you know, it's not for everything else. So I don't really know. I think I don't really know.
We're doing more than putting it on our teeth, that's for sure. With this water.
I mean,
it goes everywhere.
I guess I just look at the conversation and, you know, first of all, I don't know. I'm not a scientist.
Right.
Second of all, like, there's a lot of focus on fluoride, but what about, you know, the level of lime or the level of magnesium or the level of lithium? I mean, all of this is, you know, there's laws that you have to get if you're a water customer in a city. Like, you get a water quality report every year.
Sure.
You know, they analyze the water. They tell you everything that's in it and the amounts. And, you know, probably most people don't care, but I get it, you know, and I look at it and I read it. And I know that, you know, even if I drink natural spring water that's never been touched by people, that, you know, in between now and at least 200 years ago, you know, it could be heavy in some kind of mineral or element. And if I drink that for days, years, or decades, you know, that may have an effect. And so I don't know. I think that if there's too much fluoride that's not that different, maybe, then there's too much magnesium, or there's too much arsenic, or there's too much sulfur, there's too much of anything. You know, like, you can get kidney stones from super hard water if you drink it for your life. Like, the minerals are going to go somewhere.
Totally. Everything has its level of reaching toxicity.
Yeah. So,
like,
I mean,
even water itself, you can have too much of it and get water poisoning.
So what's so different about fluoride? I mean, it's easy to focus on that, but the reality is, you know, like, well, why don't we teach that in schools?
I'm super skeptical that they're actually trying to help our bones and teeth, but I don't have the science for all the bad things that it's doing either. The health, how it affects the brain, how it affects your immune system, all that stuff. I don't know. I know that Berkey, talking about those Berkey water filters, they have one. It's an attachment you can buy. It was like a little bit more expensive than the basic filter. I never got it, but I was curious. Do you have any thoughts on the fluoride thing? Or have you seen any evidence to good or bad?
Well, I mean, I've heard that fluoride was good and that it's in the toothpaste to help us with our teeth and so forth. I get toothpaste without fluoride.
I do too. And you can see the warnings on the toothpaste that has it. It warns you about it. Like, this is toxic. Do not ingest more than... So, yeah. But continue, sorry.
No, that's okay. But yeah, if it has a warning label on it to cite fluoride as you're
supposed to call poison control or something. If your little kid eats a little too much of that.
Yeah. So I view that as something that's probably not the best for us. And if it's not the best for us in toothpaste, which is something that we just spit out, how is fluoride and these other impurities affecting our bodies when we're ingesting it in massive quantities, like drinking water?
Yeah. Like,
especially over time.
I think about all the additives that are put into foods in food markets all across America. Go to grocery stores and look at the additives that are in foods, drinks, all kinds of poisons. It's just, that is America shopping. And then you tell me that these additives in the water are to help us with our health. I'm like, just very, very skeptical. But, you know, I don't have all the research to say that, nope, it's doing damage. It might be like a trickle effect, but it's doing damage. So it's an interesting topic, debate.
Yeah, we should have somebody on who's for fluoride.
There was recently, it was either South Dakota or North Dakota. One of the guys who works in the water treatment of the city slowly started decreasing the fluoride in the water supply. And it was like a big news story. And they eventually outed him or something. But a lot of people were holding him up as a hero. That would be an interesting one to dig into, because he thought that it was harmful for the community, the society, and everything. He was just like, we don't need to be adding this in, and I'm secretly going to just start taking it out. And eventually there was no fluoride in their water. I don't remember how he got caught or whatever, but it was a little bit of a scandal and kind of a like, this dude's cool. Interesting. Where next about all this?
Well, I mean, okay, so you're sort of looking at me like, well, what do I think about? We talked about fluoride, I guess, a bit. Well, I used to be an auto mechanic, and everybody knows. Everybody who drives a car, and if you ever have to pay to maintain one, everybody knows. Like, if the tires start out, and they have these big chunky like treads on them, and you have them for a few years, and then they get bald. It's like they've worn down like. Part of your tire, it's missing now, so you have to get new ones. And the same thing with the brake pads. They start out really thick, and they get worn out, and that's why you have to get new brakes, because the pad is gone, like it isn't there anymore. So the tires and the brake pads, they're not there anymore. You have to get new ones. Did you ever think about like where did they go? Where did your tires go? Where did your brake pads go?
In the environment, in the air?
Yeah, they went into the air, and they went onto the roads, and the same with the exhaust from your car. And so this is what I think about fluoride. I think I'd rather have fluoride in the water than live, next to a freeway because of the tire and the brake dust. Like, you know what I mean? Look, and maybe all of that's fine, but it's the point that we live in a post-industrial revolution world. We live in cities. There are advantages to living in cities. There's reasons why we do it. And part of what comes with that is density, both of people and of the stuff that we wear out along the way of living. And it goes into the environment, and cities environments are not like, moss-covered rainforest environments. Like, there's a difference in what you're breathing and what you're eating and what you're drinking. And so it's like a trade-off. Yeah. There's no jobs in the beautiful fairy forest. There's jobs downtown. So it's like a trade-off. So I get it. Fluoride, I don't really know. Like, it's a good question. It's interesting. But in my view, it's like, well, there's so many other things that are have way bigger of an effect, than fluoride in the water. So fair enough. Like, what's going on with that? I don't know. I'm looking for education, but that's not the only thing. And if we look at it all in totality, it's like damnation of how we're doing things. So it's a kind of heresy against, modern development. Or maybe it isn't. I don't know. Like, I don't have answers. Everybody chooses for themselves, but I kind of think of it like, I'll go to the city, I'll make some money, I'll try to save some up so that I can go out of the city, so that I can, maybe I can clean up and everything will be okay in the end. We'll see how it goes.
Speaking about the brake pads and the tires wearing and everything going in the system, makes me think of what has to happen in order to filter that out. What does nature do with all of that stuff? What does our body do with it? And everything has to go into hyperdrive, basically overdrive, working on that stuff to process it. And sometimes it's too much. It taxes the system, and you're sick, you're poisoned or something. Same thing's happening with plants, rivers, streams, all of that. Biological life has to deal with that. And yeah, their compost system has to go in overdrive. Everything, the detox system, the organs that help purify stuff has to go in overdrive. And yeah, makes you think. And that's just a little idea about brake pads and tires, but think about all the things that wear out in our life that are these disposable things that American culture kind of thrives on.
Yeah,
and makes en masse.
Even clothing. Think about this: if you're wearing like nylon, polyester, okay, those are the two most. I mean, prove me wrong, but I think those are the two most common materials for fabric in clothing. I mean, certainly if we go around the city here and we look at material tags on clothes, it's going to be a lot of polyester, nylon, rayon.
Yep, looks good on girls.
And it's made out of oil.
Yeah.
That's the thing. And
that
so when you wash
industry.
it, think of it. You put it in your washer, you put it in your dryer, the dryer tumbles it, you have dryer lint. What is that lint? That's tiny pieces of the material that's being dried. Well, now that's plastic. That's microplastics going into the air from every dryer, unless only natural fabrics go in there. Okay, well, that's a very obvious source of microplastics. I mean, this is, again, it's in the news everywhere. But, if we start talking about it, how it's from the clothing, well, is cotton more expensive? Can we afford it? Do we have enough cotton? Can we make everything out of cotton? I mean,
Hemp.
oil is problematic, but there's a reason why it's in clothing now. It's probably because it's cheaper. It's just like it's just like gasoline is cheaper than the water. So maybe you're right, Flynn. Maybe water is the new gold. Like, where's the broker? Who can I call? I'll put everything. I won't diversify. Just give me straight water.
Yeah, you're going to see it on the stock market and stuff, the water numbers, and people are trading that.
I mean, I think, is that not already a thing?
Probably in some way, some businesses related to water are on there, yeah.
And the commodities.
Uh-huh. But yeah, hopefully we don't see water wars anytime soon, but water scarcity is very much a thing already. And yeah, we're blessed to be in Austin, but still every year it comes up as like, look how dry the waterways are. Ooh, this is depressing. Oh man, that looks scary. Eventually we get some rains and it's like, oh God, thank God. We're recharging the aquifers. This is awesome. And we have a lot of them here in this area, but other parts of the country, not so much. And they'll get the droughts and they're more depressing.
What about using water to water your lawn for grass?
Yeah.
I mean, if
Depends
you're into
how you do it.
I
don't think it's all criminal.
Yeah, I've never cared for a lawn. I specifically try to live places where there isn't, like, that isn't a thing. Maybe it's a natural yard. Maybe it's in the, it's at the beach, or it's in the mountains or something where I don't, because to me it's like, it's expensive. Like, you have to buy a machine to take care of it, or you have to pay a staff to do it for you. And there's fertilizers, and there's the water, and it's constantly thirsty. And it's, I don't, when we were talking about wastewater treatment plants and the runoff where we put water back into the environment, because it has to go back in the environment, even the water that we poop in, like, that has to go back into the environment. There's, of course, like, what else would we do with it? Like, we're not going to put our water in space. Like, that's the only other option. Okay, so everything gets cleaned up, but the nutrients, that are growing the algae, I think it's, maybe partially because poop has a lot of nutrients in it, but also fertilizer from yards. And it just seems like a waste to buy fertilizer, throw it on the ground. Now you can have a lush lawn that's
Truck over the fertilizer first to get to you.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Ship it or truck.
Yeah, there's so many tertiary, reasons why fertilizing a lawn is not for me, because that just seems like way too much work when it can just be, sand but something, like something there's a lot of plants that grow around Austin. It could be some
appropriate grasses that seem to thrive on just the natural climate, the natural rainfall. Then you're not supplementally watering.
And Austin does have a lot of natural
But it won't look
yards.
like a golf course lawn. So
it won't look like a
some
golf course
people
lawn.
want that.
So what do I think about grass? I don't know. I think it's just, like, why?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're
it
into...
depends. What if they have, like, a lot of community meetings on this plot of grass?
It just
families
seems,
and kids play on it.
It just seems like
they
a
have
lot
events on it. Then I'd be like, okay, maybe you can do some watering, but how are you going to water? Are you going to do it in an idiotic, wasteful way, or are you going to think about it and like, how can I recycle my roof water and put that on there and then use that water again? Then I'm like, okay, cool, that's a good system. But if you're using your drinking water and this like overpowered sprinkler system and water spraying everywhere else, not just the lawn, but you're getting it on the sidewalk, the streets, and other things, and it's like, okay, well, that's not very smart, but there could be a way. In permaculture, a good answer to all those questions always is like, it depends. That's like, it always works to just say it depends, because it does. It's like, what's appropriate in your location, in your specific little region, or maybe your house has certain characteristics where you change up the technique, you do it a little different, and it's in a good balance. It's sustainable. But you can't just copy and paste that to everybody when people love a one-size-fits-all solution. So, yeah. Does this plant work? Does grass work? Well, it depends. What are you going to do with it? How does it get its energy? What are you going to... Yeah. What do you think about the lawns?
Well, I think that it's lots of water to make something look where we think it might look nice,
Attractive. Yeah.
attractive.
Is that the only value, just to have a green, pretty thing to look at?
Right.
Then it seems like you're wasting water.
That's a lot of water waste.
Especially if you look around the rest of the city that you're at, and then it looks like drought everywhere else, and then this one person has like
One person has a
perfectly green
plush-
lawn, a little island oasis. Like, how is that possible? That's not natural, and it's because they're using a shit ton of water during the summer.
Right. And so artificial grass is a thing,
Yeah,
especially in Southern California
If
where
you just
water
want the
is so
green aesthetic,
scarce.
boom.
Yeah.
There you go. Don't need to cut it.
Right.
Don't need machines to mow it.
Right. So you're in permaculture.
I am. I would say I'm into it.
You're into it.
Yeah, I'm not like working officially under that, but always thinking about it. I think it's a great way to design.
Yeah. So what are some of the things that you're doing, knowing that, and your interest in water and water conservation? What are you doing at home, and what can the average person do at home? We've talked about the OR, the reverse osmosis, being the filter being like $350, which I spent $300 on the Berkey water filter that I have.
Nice.
Of course, I got the biggest one.
Yeah.
But and those filters, last a year, maybe two, depending on how much you use it. But what are some of the things that you're doing at home that are conserving and purifying
stuff,
water?
Capture. I don't have gutters at my house, but I know where the water runs off from the roof, and I've tried to kind of lead that water to hit the ground and go into garden beds by just shaping the ground a little bit, because water is just flowing, following the path of least resistance. So if you just start trenching out the land a little bit, all of a sudden it's like a little canal of water, and the more you trench it out, the more the water follows it. So I tried to do a couple little things when I moved into my house to like make the water flow where I knew I was going to grow some plants. I don't really do a lot of watering, to be honest, on the property. Besides what we use inside the house, I'm not doing heavy gardening right now, growing a bunch of stuff, but just native things that, they come and go with the seasons. A lot of them reseed themselves and don't require a lot of inputs from me. It's just rainwater. And what else do we do? We've collected rainwater through those little standard little 50-gallon drums, and I just had them open with no tops on them and put little nets on the top as a lid so the water could still go through, but not every bit of particles and bugs and stuff messing with it. But I just use that water for gardening and occasionally cleaning things in the backyard, and that's about it. No big interventions, just a lot of not doing all these extra inputs that people do. I don't have like a sprinkler system or anything. I'm never out there washing my car or anything with the water hose, but occasionally some small garden projects, a little bit of herb and veg type stuff. About the lawn thing, though, I would consider just native grasses. You get all these different textures and shapes instead of just one. And if you really want something flat, there are native ground covers and things that just grow like a carpet, and they cover things. They're green. Another good thing about mixing a bunch of native things that are adapted to your environment is you get different colors. You get flowers. You get all kinds of like wildlife action. Will be way more interested in the lawn that's made of native grasses, native plants that thrive here, than just your St. Augustine lawn that you mow or zoysia grass that you mow, whatever type of sod. I'm not against it, though. I think there's some value into it. Having a nice picnic on a lawn is pretty sweet, and it encourages people and to interact on it. It looks like a nice, safe space to do a lot of different things. Kids love to play in it. All those things are healthy and good for lifestyle. So I'm not totally against it. I just think it needs to be thoughtful, and you need to think about how many inputs am I going to need to keep this thing sustainable. And if it's smart and works for you, then great. But yeah, I'm not into where the whole city looks like a desert and then there's like a golf course here that's like green and they're watering. In the middle of the day, the sprinklers are going on where like a lot of it's just evaporating and it seems very thoughtless. And that's the only green space going on in that little area. It rubs me the wrong way. And then, yeah, there's other places, not to just hit the golf course. It could be some corporate, giant structure with green lawns all around it that nobody ever uses, that no one's ever interacting or socializing or playing on. It's just, we want the building to look nice, so we need green squares around it. Put the lawn in, get the fertilizer, get the sprinklers, get all these inputs, people working on it. It's like, there's other ways you could have had a green space, like the way you talked about the artificial turf, and that wouldn't require all those things that I just listed. So, yeah, those are some things.
Yeah, we talked about gray water. Can you define that?
I would consider it like water that came from your sinks, washing your hands in the bathroom, kitchen, you're washing your dishes, that water that goes out there. And there's a big spectrum of what gray water can look like and what the contents are going to be. I mean, one guy can wash dishes and come out with gray water that looks clean, and the other guy could come out with gray water that looks like multiple colors and kind of strange and like cloudy and dense. And yeah, so you would want to look at that and decide where that should go to get the best use out of it. Maybe you water some crappy plants that you barely care about, and then you realize, oh, those plants didn't even care that I put that weird water on them. They still liked it. They used what they needed from it, and then they didn't use the other stuff, and that became compost. Maybe some other creatures in the soil broke it down eventually that are better with dealing with the more gross stuff. But the plants used what they wanted out of it, and they're green. And yeah, you just kind of play with it like a kid and see what you can do in the garden. A lot of people use it for a lot of different things, but they are conscious about it. Like, okay, what kind of food are you washing in here? What kind of soap are you using? Are you using some like Dawn dish soap from H-E-B? That's probably not the greatest thing to do, but like something more pure, natural, Castile soap or something real basic with like 1 or 2 ingredients, it's probably going to be okay. And you can get away using that in your garden or any other kind of water needs you need to do maintenance on your house where it's like, I don't need this to be drinkable. I just need water to do something, to wash this machine off, or maybe something runs on water, so you pump it in there. And yeah, that's it. Yeah, what else?
So as far as gray water goes, what are some of the ways that the average person can recycle it?
Don't let it go like down the usual drainage sewage system. You may have to modify that, and instead of letting it go off your property, you create like you tee into it like plumbing or irrigation. It's like a modifying the pipes of your house kind of situation, and you can cut them off. You can like Legos build out where this pipe is going to go. So it would require a little bit of DIY, but once you got it going and you tap off of it, just like you tap off of a beer keg or something, then you got your own flow. You can control it. You can put little valves on it and say, sometimes I like to do this crazy DIY thing, but sometimes I just let it go normal, like a normal city water goes. And yeah, that's where it is, man. And then you get to choose what you want to do with it. Like that Brad Lancaster guy, he had these flexible tubes. They weren't hard pipes. They were almost like a water hose, and multiple gray water hoses did different things, and some go to this area of the property. And he made it easy for himself to do the right thing and the smart thing, and then he made it hard for himself to do the bad stuff, which is like wasteful, uses more energy, maybe is the lazy thing. Like he had a microwave, but it wasn't plugged in. It was like high and unplugged, and it was like, I'm only going to use that in emergencies. And then all the good sustainable stuff was like accessible, very easy in front of your face. Like, this is how I get my water. This is where the gray water goes. And don't make it inconvenient to do that stuff. Make it like super easy and simple. Like I just moved the hose from here to here, and now it's the water to wash my fucking underwear or something.
Yeah, so where does that guy get his water from? He's out in the middle of the desert. Is he
Barely
off
any
grid?
rain over there. Yeah, I think it's No, he's not. He's in a neighborhood in Arizona, I believe. Yeah, I can't think of the city right now, but really,
he's in
really cool dude.
He's in the suburbs.
Yeah, yep.
So suburb sprawl is a big thing in the United States. So this is something that he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
And what's his name again?
Brad Lancaster.
Brad Lancaster.
Yeah, and it's shareable information you could apply to anywhere. You might have to adapt and modify a little bit for your region, your climate, or whatever. But all the principles that he's looking at, everyone can use them. Everyone needs to know, like, how does the wind come in? Where does it hit? How can I use that as an energy source? Where do I have shade? How can I use that to keep things cool, to not kill these plants, to not have to, like, have energy intensive air condition because I orientated everything in my house right, where, like, the areas where I'm chilling and hanging out, they stay cool naturally because there's, the building is a certain way. Thermal mass and all that comes into play. Having windows and doors that even function with natural flows of wind and how the sun is moving around the house. And then he does all this great stuff with water and capturing it, different types of drainage systems that recycle water and use it. He's keeping everything that comes to his property. He's not trying to let it go out into the streets and the environment. And then he's trying to give people a model and a system that they can use on their house. And he's definitely exported these methods out all over his neighborhood. And people at first hated him in his neighborhood because he's doing all this radical, rebellious stuff, breaking these rules. And then eventually he's working with the city, and they like what he's doing, and they're applying it to other things. So it's growing in a very positive way. I think it's a good message for everybody looking at these kind of things.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Freddie, we're talking about recycling gray water and the different ways of doing that. Do you have some ideas on that?
I don't think I have anything to offer on that isn't, if you search it on YouTube, you're going to find all kinds of people. They've figured it all out. I mean, this has all been figured out. It's kind of a solved problem. And there's people who have way more experience with it than I do. Have some experience with it, but there's people who are way more experienced and they have more knowledge and they have measurements and all those things. But generally, I think trying to reuse as much as possible. I mean, it's kind of tangential, but I just once as a budget, like a cost ballpark exercise, I looked at like a single family home or a townhouse, that's just typical, it has an electric water heater, it has a heat pump for heating and air conditioning, it's got a normal kitchen, just everything exactly what you'd expect to find, and the most common kind of housing.
So like a 3-bedroom, 2-bath.
Yeah, it
single
could be
family home.
Whatever it is, but the idea was that I wanted to like have the heat from the water heater just being absorbed from hot outside if you're in a hot climate during the summer, but in the winter time to save the heat that comes out of the water heater and keep that inside the house, and do that with like a refrigerator. It's cold inside the box. Well, the heat that is being removed from the box is going to the coils on the back of the refrigerator or in the case of the refrigerator. Now they sort of make them where the whole outside of it will get warm. Same thing with that. Move that outside in the hot times and keep it inside in the cold time. So I looked at, everything that used energy in the house to move the heat around appropriately depending on the season. And it was just so complicated and so expensive and tedious. I'm like, I don't know if we can. It's a huge challenge to like reclaim heat and get rid of heat. I mean, this is one of the challenges for data centers is like, what do you do with all the heat from the electronics? How do we get rid of that? And their solution so far seems to be, an open loop will just run water through it. Anyway, the challenge is to do all that and get it to be usable in a way that people are used to. I mean, if it's a lot more work or it takes a lot more time, I think mass scale adoption won't happen. And to really impact, water and the environment and air quality and all these things, there have to be changes or shifts on a kind of like a big scale, on a massive scale. And like I'm already down with it. Like I've lived in forests, I've lived at the beach, I've lived in trailers after hurricanes. It's done all the different methods. Remodeling a house. I'm living in that with no kitchen, and I'm taking a shower outside in a hose, and it's summertime. Whatever. But the challenge is to just make it usable, make things look and operate the way people are used to, but have it, reusing something or being more efficient. It's important to, I think, get people on board with it, because the people who already get it and are already comfortable outside, we're already doing it. So we need the people who are resistant, or they're not used to it, or they think it's weird, or if it's too complicated or it takes too much time, people have to work and pay their bills.
Or too much money.
Or too much money. A lot of people can't, they can afford their electric bill, even though they would spend less money on electricity over time with the solar battery system. If that's going to be $25,000, but you got to pay now, well, that person is going to just keep paying the electricity bill, because that's how they can meter out that payment over time. And so again, it's like, all right, well, we want to adopt that on a massive scale. How we do it? Well, California is trying to do something about that. They now, unless there's a mountain that's blocking the sun from your house or whatever, if you build a new house in California, you have to include solar panels as part of it. And so it becomes wrapped up in a mortgage. It's just paid for with everything else. It's just a component like an appliance. And, I guess so far so good. It sounds like, they're just forcing people to buy solar. But look, housing in California is already expensive. The solar panels is a drop in the bucket. So we'll see. That's. I think we're a few years into that. Haven't seen any, has anybody measured it, or can we determine what's been the impact of this, for individuals economically, for the environment generally, for the power grid, what's going on? I don't know. But that's just something that they've tried to, help make it just included in the package, and people move into those houses and they turn on a light switch and the light works just like any other house, it doesn't, they don't have to do anything for it. So we have, they have more of them just because it's mandated to be included. I don't know if mandate is going to, there's always chance of corruption to come in if there's a mandate for something, but I
like the idea of more DIY independent people who are using their own solar panels, and they have their own cells, and they decide, what do I want to do with this energy that I captured? Because I think that's more attractive to people. It's like, I have my own energy. I can do different things with it, versus it's just automatic. It goes right into the energy grid. We'll send you a lower bill or something. And so it's tied into that system.
That kind of works. I think, it kind of doesn't matter in a way, if you're net zero, net positive, net negative on your electrical use, and you're selling back, you're grid tied, and you're selling back to the grid.
Right.
The cost of the energy is one part of the bill, but then you have the fixed costs part of the bill that isn't affected by usage, and that's to maintain the grid. That's to maintain the grid, to repair the grid,
right.
to make the grid bigger, to get bigger wires, to make more powerful substations. Well, as energy demand grows, the investment in the infrastructure also grows, and so usually the base rate will sort of grow over time. And so if you're connected to the grid, you have to help pay for the grid, and that's kind of the challenge. With roads, electric cars don't use gasoline, so the gasoline tax is the biggest part of what funds, road building, but the electric cars use it too. So what do we do? So, they charge more for registration. There's different things that are being tried. We'll see how it comes out in the wash. But, as far as the
solar panels don't last forever is another thing people should realize. It's like, this is not going to be something that's, eventually you have to dispose of this material, and it seems like it has some toxic elements to it. Where are all these solar panels going to die?
Where does the solar panel go to die? It's a legit question, but I think that it's mostly like silicon or glass and metals.
That doesn't sound too bad so far. I think there's some other elements involved.
There's other things. I don't know exactly, and I guess there's different kinds of solar panels. So, it depends on which one. So I don't know, but it's sort of like with everything else. If we're going to have electricity, there's going to be something different, going on the surface of the earth. So what is the trade-off? Is it's it's a big calculus, like solar panels, but then there's something left over at the end of their life. Do we bury them? Do we take it apart and break it down into its constituent parts and recycle it? Is that reasonable? Is that possible? I don't really know, but like what's going to happen with the status quo of oil dependency for energy? Like there's problems associated with that too. So like which one is worse? I don't know. The solar panels seem better, but they're mostly still in use now. There's not a lot of like solar panel trash.
I'm down to keep riding on the solar panel wave. I just want we the people to have access to it, to do what we see fit as well, and it not just be constantly this mandated thing and like this governmental type of thing. I like the idea of off-grid people using it, small solar panels that anybody can do small things with when they're camping and stuff. And as long as we have access to all that, I'm cool with it. And there's probably more sustainable ways to do it than right now what we're putting on everybody's roof.
I think it's kind of a solved problem at this point. I mean, it really is an economic choice. If solar panels are cheaper for someone, they're going to do that. If being part of the grid is cheaper, they're going to do that. And so, and solar and batteries is continuing to emerge new technologies. I know it's like we always see, we have a solid state or whatever the latest battery is. Like, maybe in 10 years we'll actually have that. Well, it's been decades, and we do have things, and it is getting better. It's getting cheaper. People are just going to adopt it, but we can't make water from the sun. Like that's the thing. So it kind of brings us back is water the new gold? Because electricity is a solved problem. Like we can sit all day and be like, well, which one's better for the environment? Which one's cheaper? Which one's faster? What should we have mandates? Should we not have mandates? Okay, well, whatever. Like whatever we do, we're going to keep using electricity. If we need more of it, we're going to make more of it. If we can get it from the sun, we can burn oil, we can burn gas, we can burn coal. There's all these ways we can do nuclear. We can do wave action, wind. We have all these ways to get it. It's a solved problem, but we can't make water the same way that we can make electricity. So water is not a solved problem.
Right. and really while we're talking about this, now you mentioned earlier about how solar panels are built into the cost of a new build in California.
I believe that's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So do you think that that could work for water filters being built into the cost of a new build, and that could be a part of the mortgage lend?
Man, wow. If we would include water filters in new builds the way that California requires solar panels to be included in new builds, that can be interpreted as an implication of the water supply system. I mean, in the country as a whole.
That it's not good enough?
That it's not good enough. Now, my personal position, and I'm not a doctor, I'm not a scientist, I'm just a person with a body who's living my life, and I've lived with drinking drinking water from outside, from a spring or a lake or whatever is there. If it's and I look for good places. Like, where is the water good? Where is it okay to do this? Because it's not okay to do that everywhere, and it's not okay for everyone to do that. I'm just one of those weird people who I can do that. My body doesn't have problems processing that. But municipal water systems are safe. But if we're going to filter it and clean it more, then we're kind of saying that it's not safe. Or, it's sort of like I don't see how it could ever happen because it's almost damning in a way.
Well, I mean,
of a utility.
Right.
And I don't know if that utility should be damned. I mean, look, specific, like locational specific problems like Flint, Michigan. I mean, almost everybody probably has heard about, we used lead in plumbing a long time ago. Yes, we knew the lead was bad, but we did it anyway. Well, all the people who did that, they're dead now. Okay. But there's still lead pipes. So we have to figure out what to do. And so, really what happened in Flint is actually, a lead pipe will make like a mineral deposit liner naturally inside of it so that the water isn't actually touching the lead, and it tends not to leach out the lead from the pipe. So in Flint specifically, they there was something that they changed in their water supply in their treatment facility, or like the source of water. You know, like we can use water from rivers and lakes or reservoirs that are it's surface water, or we can take water from aquifers, which is well water. The pH of the water from those two places is going to be different. The pH of rainwater is slightly acidic. And so in Flint, there was a change in their water supply where the pH balance of the water, which is close to neutral, but it's a little bit alkaline, and you get mineral deposits inside the lead pipes. If you convert to just slightly acidic, then it's going to begin eroding the mineral deposits. And that's what happened. And so the mineral deposit lining the inside of the lead pipes eroded away, and then the lead started going into the water. It wasn't always like that.
It was making contact with the lead the whole time now.
The whole time now. And so that's a very bad problem. Like that water, like people shouldn't drink that water. And so that's, are there other places where that's probably going on? Yeah, there are. Yeah. But as a whole, I mean, certainly anything contemporary built in the United States, there's no metal in the pipes. It's all plastic. It's all PVC. It's
that PEX stuff.
What is it? PEX is, I can't remember the name of the plastic, but it's cross-linked polyethylene. That's what PEX is. And PVC is polyvinyl chloride. Is plastic bad for us? Yeah, but it's not as bad as metal. So that's, so again, like generally the water supply is pretty safe. I mean, look, visit places in the world that it's not the United States. I mean, we can talk about fluoride. We can talk about chloramine and chlorine and the treatment of the water. I mean, we have to do something with it so that it doesn't grow biological matter in it before it gets to your tap. So it's as safe as we can sort of get it to have it available as broadly and as cheaply and as ubiquitously and as reliably, and there's all these things. So are there problems with water? Yes. Are there other places that are less developed than we are where the problems are worse? Yeah, there is that. I mean, not everybody can live next to a thermal waterfall. So they have a hot shower outside. They have, they can just sit their clothes in it and it cleans them. They can go swimming. They can have this like the gym membership. And
where are the thermal waterfalls at? That sounds awesome.
Well, don't tell anyone.
We'll talk about it off air.
No, look, you can find them there's a few places in the United States, but I
know about hot springs, but the waterfalls sounds magical.
You're gonna find them in Mexico, Central America, Northern South America.
Amazing.
They're around. Like, it's a real thing on the earth. But, I mean, there's not that much of it. Like, everyone can't have that in their backyard. There's just not enough of it for everyone. So we have a water system. Does that have problems? Yeah. But is it better than not having a water system? Oh, yes. Yes.
For sure.
So water filters in every house, I don't know. Solar panels could be $25,000, but an RO water filter to go under your kitchen sink could be $400.
It's nothing. And it could be like region specific, where like in this area we recommend this, and then in this area you don't have to filter it much. It could be not a one size fits all thing.
Well, and look, let's face it, the housing market just
crazy
sucks
with the
right
filtration.
Now. And so if a $400 water filter is going to stop you from having a water filter, but you're buying a new house, I don't know. That's like a money allocation issue more than an economic barrier. Like, I don't know. Water filters are cheap, and I get it. Cheap is relative, but if we look at what's a water bill and what's the filter cost, like, yeah, you got to save up for that maybe, but it's achievable. Whereas solar battery, that's at a level that's. I mean, it's a couple orders of magnitude more money that we're talking about. It's a big difference.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
It's just the availability of the water, like the aquifers are going down. I mean, I've driven in places in California where driving on I-5 in the north, and there's this huge, just like a ramp going down. And now you're in a depression, and then after a while, there's a big ramp going up, and it's like that whole area dropped because the groundwater was taken out, and then there's compaction of the layers of the earth, because the water isn't there anymore. So everything kind of crushes down, which is interesting because when that happens, like that part of the earth is not going to fill up with water again, because now there's rocks and sand and dirt and clay and, you know, whatever the crust of the earth has compressed, and there's not a void where the water that was taken out once was. You know, so how long does it take to fix that? Like, how long does it take for that to reverse? Like, I don't
need a lot of water to come through there with a lot of force and a lot of time, and then it carves out a new little pocket or cavity.
Yeah,
and stays.
yeah.
But
well,
it depends how much rainfall you're going to get. Speaking of California again, do you know about? Well, California's on the coast, so you think I talk about how they have a water scarcity problem. People are like, well, they're right there by the ocean, but what's the desalinization process? And do you know anything about that technology?
A little bit. I mean, I'm from the Texas Gulf Coast, and so this comes up. This comes up periodically, and you know, I grew up around the city of Corpus Christi, and so recently, you know, earlier this year, their reservoir got down to like 8% of water left. You know, and roughly like half of that water goes to the refineries, the port area. They make plastics there. They make gasoline there. They refine, you know, crude oil there. They have refineries there. So they use a lot of water in the process, and they got really low. And always this comes up because, you know, if Corpus Christi Refinery Row goes down, we start losing things like gasoline in this part of the country, jet fuel for as far away as Dallas, you know, like the planes don't fly, the cars don't drive. So it's crucial infrastructure. And so it won't be allowed to fail. And in a way, I look at Corpus Christi and I wonder, is like, do they not, you know, is it so hard to do desalination because it's just like, well, they'll never let the water run out. You know, like the state, the country, like they'll never let the water run out because the product of the port area is so crucial that it can't be allowed to fail for whatever the reason. And I don't know, but this has come up. And so there's plans to do it. They're sort of trying to do it. I lived in Port Aransas, and in the time that I lived in Port Aransas last was after Hurricane Harvey. There was a lot of investment going into the port, and one of the projects on the table was desalination. They wanted to do it on, I think, Harbor Island, which is across the shipping channel from Port Aransas. And so they have a pipe that takes in the water from the Gulf. The plant desalinates it, and then there's an exhaust of super heavy brine, like the salt, comes out the other side of the process. Now, if you inject the salt into a shipping channel or an estuary or someplace close on shore, the salt content of the water, everything dies. Fish die, crabs die, birds, like nothing can survive with that level of salt. So the solution is to take it far offshore and dump it on the bottom. Like that's going to have an impact, but almost the life in the water lives along the shore and in the outflow from rivers. And the middle of the ocean is kind of like a desert, in that, you know, a desert is just a place where not much grows there. Well, the ocean is kind of like that. So you want to put the salt as far away from shore as you can, but the longer pipe costs more money. So it makes the cost higher, so nobody wants to do it. So they don't do it. And then 10 years goes by, and now, you know, like 100 is the new 20, right? So it was 200 million before, and now it's $1 billion. So no one can afford it. So they don't do it. And then 10 more years goes by, and now we're here. And originally the problem is that they want to dump the salt onto Port Aransas, and you can't do that.
Onto the island itself?
Well, to the shipping channel or close on shore. The idea is a short pipe is going to leave the salt close on shore. I don't have the plans in front of me. I can't tell you exactly, you know, where they were proposing to put the pipe.
Sure.
But I lived there, and I care about the environment. I mean, I love I lived there for the Gulf, you know, like I love to swim in it and I love to surf, and it's great having the fish. And I just think, you know, if we didn't have the fish, we wouldn't have the tourism. The economy would go down. I wouldn't have fish to eat, you know, because if the fish die because there's so much salt, well, then I can't just go get one and have dinner. You know, that's one of the nice things about being there. And, you know, so people could say, well, you know, the wider area is more important than just Port A. Well, okay. go down that road, see where you end up. So whatever. The short of it is, desalination takes a lot of electricity. Okay, we already have challenges with electrical supply in the grid, and we're working on that. But whatever, that's a solvable problem. Desalination, they're talking about it. They're trying to do it. They're meeting resistance because they won't put a long pipe for the exhaust of the salt. And in my view, that's all they need to do. That's the only thing that makes me personally say, if you're not going to do it right, then don't do it. Use less water somehow. I don't know. We can't.
What about all those filtration techniques we talked about in the beginning of this talk? From the earthen ones to the charcoal ones, reverse osmosis, all that stuff.
Okay, so are you asking...
With the salt water, with the seawater.
Yeah, how to process the outflow from a desalination plant through natural methods of filtration to reduce the impact?
I'm just curious about why it's so special, the desalination process versus all these other water filtration things. I imagine that if you tried to run it through one of these basic filters, you're still going to have a salination problem. Is that the issue? It's just too much for these filters?
Do you guys know a chemist? Can we call a chemist?
I do know one, yeah.
Okay, go. Maybe he'll come and talk with us. That would be great because this is a very important question. And, I've thought about this a lot.
It's an essential mineral to life.
It's an essential mineral.
There's also problems with how we want to use that seawater get our life to work. Yeah, modern life to work.
It's like with everything, amount matters, quantity matters.
Totally.
So
dosage matters.
It's too much salt. There's something about sodium. Salt is sodium chloride. So there's something about chemically sodium and chlorine and hydrogen and oxygen molecularly in combination. It's very hard to crack them apart and come out with two hydrogens and an oxygen, which is water, and have the salt separate from that. You can't do that with any kind of a mesh filter. You can do it with reverse osmosis as a process, but the efficiency is, I don't know by how much, but it's surely massive. Like the filter doesn't last very long. The mesh doesn't last very long. You have to look at the quantity. We're talking about millions of gallons of water in 24 hours. If you have an RO filter under your sink in your kitchen, you're going to be taking out of that, even if you cook with it, something on the order of between half a gallon and 3 gallons per person living in that house per day. So less than 5 gallons of water a day for your RO filter under the sink. Well, that's going to be there for years processing water. If you try to do millions of gallons of water a day, just imagine how massive it would be, how much energy it would take. If reverse osmosis would take the salt out of the discharge, it would much more easily take the salt out of the ocean water. Do you know what I mean? That's just continuing the process. Eventually, it doesn't matter how much salt you take out from where. You're not using the salt. The salt is in the source water. We're not using the salt, so you're going to end up with salt. So what do you do with it? Let's say you could isolate, no salt goes back into the environment. So now you have the salt from millions of gallons of seawater, every day, and you get these piles and mountains, and it's overwhelms the space. There's all this salt. What do we do with the salt? It's a legitimate question. I mean, I think the oceans are so big that we can just dump.
There's got to be a way to process it to use it for certain things, for sure.
I'm all for that. You
can certainly kill things with it. If you need an herbicide, put all this salt on that. That's dead now.
Salting the earth. Wow, biblical. So I don't know. It's a good
Could
question.
Could it be converted to table salt?
I mean, that's essentially what it is. Yeah, there's sea salt. You can buy it at HEB. They have it in the store.
We need it for our brain to work, so there's got to be a way where we can recycle, reuse it.
Yeah, we need such a tiny amount, for our bodies. Versus, it really is a massive quantity of salt, and it really is an issue. And I think the solution for now is just to take it far offshore and put a longer straw. It doesn't seem to me like that big of a deal.
It used to be an alternative refrigerant or something, keep food fresh or something. Put it on this block of salt, keep it in a salt box.
Salt. Well, if you salt meat, cure them.
Totally.
It's because bacteria, the salt kills the bacteria.
It's like a force field around that piece of fish.
It's a preservative. We can't just drink that. If you drink seawater, you go crazy.
Totally.
Like don't ever do that. Like that won't save you. If you're trapped on the ocean and you drink the seawater, it's not going to save you. You will die, and you will hallucinate before you die.
Maybe
So
maybe we
have
add
to
it
get
to
the salt
certain
out.
type of pools or something. Certain type of pools that need it. Maybe it gets used in swimming pools or saltwater ponds and saltwater pools. Some people have those now.
There's a big one in Rockport, Texas.
Okay. Maybe there's a way to introduce it little by
saltwater
little
pool.
and everything stays in balance. Got some other things, but where are you guys going? Anything after
Reduce.
this?
It's reduce, reuse, recycle. So the first in the order of operations is reduction. So I think the first place always when this comes up is, well, where can we reduce use or demand? I think gray water systems is a great way to do that. Use the water as many times as possible before you get rid of it.
Yes.
I don't know what we're, it's like aquifers can replenish if they don't collapse in on themselves and they're not contaminated by chemical processes or salts. But it takes a long time, it takes lifetimes for those things to infiltrate water into them. And so, we're not out of water yet. And I think if we reduce the amount of water that we use, so if we get higher efficiency with each gallon of water, then maybe it's okay. Maybe we kind of get things in balance. And if we're not net negative on water use from groundwater, then it could be okay. But I really think that reduction has to be the first thing that we look at. So like when I build a house, I'm looking at always the efficiency of it. And, most people don't think, well, how, if I live in this house and I pay 30 years on a mortgage, like how much water am I going to use? How much electricity am I going to use to be able to use the house? It's the whole point of the house. Have
Reset
utility.
your expectations about what your dwelling really needs.
Yeah.
Like, can we limit this amount? And analyze all that. Can you do less? And then once you know what the demands are, what the inputs are going to be, now you can make a system or a design that you can apply to that. But at first, you might have some unrealistic needs or expectations. Like my house has to have this much of this kind of energy. It has to have this many outlets and this much electricity. It's like, well, we could reset some of those expectations going into building stuff, and that would be a huge difference.
Yeah, and I mean, water is really challenging, but the easiest place to gain efficiency with water use is just to not have a lawn, not have a traditional, like a St. Augustine grass lawn. Like what else can we do? And, some places do rocks, and then I've built in places where the developer is like, you cannot put rocks in the yard. You cannot do a rock yard. Like, I'll sue you if you do that, and you're signing, you get it, right? You were clear. And I'm like, oh yeah, don't worry. We don't want to do a rock yard. It's fine. We want to just, whatever grows here naturally, we're going to put that instead of grass, and we're going to not have gutters. We're going to do that with, a hedge and some, it's the water is going to just come off the roof and it's going to grow all the stuff that grows here anyway.
Your lawn, the guy waters his lawn. What happens to the water when it runs off?
Yeah,
Are you reusing it? Because that changes the lawn thing for me big time. Like, after it hits the lawn, it drains into this little rain garden, goes back into his pond, and it never went anywhere. It's right back where it started.
That's actually a good idea, but I think part of the issue with grass is that it like, what's the word? It respires. Like plants breathe, and they use carbon dioxide and they sort of exhale oxygen and water just like we do. We exhale water. And so, if you're watering grass, the grass is going to utilize that water. It's not just going to be like, I took a bath and give it back.
100% back for sure.
It's going into the sky.
But we do see runoff happen when people run sprinklers.
Of course.
And then depending on how the drainage is, it goes in different ways. And there is an excess of runoff.
Okay, so that's a perfect example of a place where reduction is the most important thing to do. If there's
tweak your design.
If there's runoff of water, then it's more water than what's needed for that purpose. So reduce that. Or like you said, fix it with drainage, divert it to some secondary use after that. I think those are great ideas.
First level is grass. The second level is some other thing. And
but that takes awareness. People have to kind of get it and
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 some of your
to
examples,
learn how to do it.
Yes, the know-how. But some of your examples were like I taught this guy that this was smart using economics, talking to him about money, not about hippy-dippy stuff or environmentalism or all these other things that the brain might just turn off. But you talk to somebody about just pure value. Like, in the end, you're richer. In the end, you spent less money on this. It might seem like the water filter.
Where do I sign?
You tell a
more
guy,
money for me? Okay, sign me up.
like the water filter that's only $300. I could see some people being like, how could something that cheap change my life that much? It's not going to be that big of a deal.
Well,
but
if you
show 'em
spend
the math
if
over
you spend
time,
$900 every
Yes,
year buying
exactly.
bottles of water, and one time you spend $300 on a filter, yeah, you gotta pull a bunch of purchasing forward to get
Totally.
it, but you're gonna have a lot.
Yeah, and in the
more
long
money.
term,
You have a lot
You
more.
won't think about a lot of this stuff in the long term, and I feel like you're better off. You're actually saving money. That speaks to the money part of the mind, and the other part of marketing all these things is making it cool, making it sexy, making it fun, making it like, hey, dude, everyone's doing it. Like, and that's a part where I don't think we've gotten there. With
We
all
will use
these,
propaganda for good.
Yeah, we haven't got there with all this sustainability stuff, but it's on the horizon. And let's see. Do you know anything about exploiting a well or digging a well, prices? Or I've heard about some people putting a well on their property and the prices were insane to get like a company to come dig a well for you or something. But I know other people have tried DIY independent ways to just go find their own groundwater and tap into it. So I'm curious if you explored that or know
I love it
what it
because-
takes.
Oh man, the answer is yes. I've explored this. I didn't realize how much I didn't know about wells until I started asking the question, well, if I do this, if I buy this property or if I build a house in this place and we want to use a well for water, like what does that line on the budget need to look like? I have to have the answer to that. So I go looking for it and I learn. Wells is like a lot of things. It's very site specific. It's very, where do you live? Where on the earth are you? What's your elevation? Is it mountainous? You live on a barrier island where there's a beach? I mean, I lived on a barrier island. You could dig down 10 feet and you were going to get water.
Amazing.
It might have a little bit salt content, but I mean, you could use it to water a grass lawn. It does fine. So, 10 feet through sugar sand, that's DIY all day.
Yeah,
you could
lovely.
do 1,000 wells out of a single Home Depot. So, now, Austin is, on the east side, it's kind of like was farmland and you've got black clay and it's kind of flat. It starts going into the coastal plain. On the west side, you've got limestone outcroppings and hills and channels cut through by rivers and creeks. And so, in the west of I-35 in central Texas, you might have to drill down 100 feet to get water. You might have to go down
You're a millionaire or something.
400 feet to get water.
Yeah.
And however far you drill, if the groundwater decreases, because over time that's what we're seeing. That's why springs outflow diminishes. Some of them dry up and stop running. I mean, there's a dead spring in the middle of Austin. It's like Medical Parkway and 35th Street. It's over there. It's in Shoal Creek, and it's a dead spring. It used to be a spring that ran all the time, and now it doesn't. The
Deactivated.
city's built on top of it, so it's whatever was going on, whatever that place was like. It's not like that anymore, and so that naturally will happen. So drilling wells, it depends. Like, do you have to drill through rock to get to the water? Do you have to go through 10 feet or do you need 500 feet? How much, obviously, the farther you go, the harder it is, the more it's going to cost. In our area,
What's a ballpark? What if Flynn wanted
order
to dig
of
a well here?
magnitude, like if you had a cheap, easy, shallow, maybe $10,000. If they have to go a little farther, there's some rock, maybe 20,000. I know of people, I lived in an area that was like north of Lake Travis or the Colorado River. I mean, at the top where the river sort of becomes the lake, where that kind of goes together in between, say like Jonestown and Marble Falls. So if you're north of there, that's the elevation is going up. It's all limestone. You've got to go super far down. There are people out there who have spent, they'll tell you, we spent $100,000 digging down. We never did get to water. We gave up. We stopped because after $100,000, we couldn't do anymore, and we don't have water. So it depends. Where are you? I don't know. Like, this is what I do is if I'm interested in something or I need to know, or it's going to make the difference between whether, should it be this spot or should it be this other spot? There's companies that drill wells, the well drillers, call them, because they've been all over. They know each other.
Yeah,
They're
they
going to
have maps.
They have maps. I mean, they're going to know more about it than anybody else. And
They'll
so I'm
take
going to
X-rays
call
of the
them and be
land
like,
and ship,
what
yeah.
can you tell me about this spot? What do you think? Is maybe they did the next door and they know already, or they can help give an idea. Well, this part is very high off the aquifer. There's not a lot of water up there. It's not good chances. This other place is much better. I just depend on professionals that do it every day.
Yeah.
They know way more than me.
Totally.
So I kind of I get that there's so much I don't know about it, and that's enough for me to consult a professional. And so that's what I would say. It depends.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good answer. Anything for you? No? I have some more stuff, I think. Have you heard of Victor Schauberger?
No.
Oh, man. I was hoping you did.
Well, what's he into?
Water. It started off as forestry. I think he, as a kid, grew up in the forestry industry with his parents, maybe grandparents, too. So he was really into, timber and wood and how it all interacted with the rest of the environment. But then he got really obsessed with rivers and streams, and he's known for analyzing the trout in the water in the streams and how they had certain techniques to just. One of them, he noticed a lot of things. He was they call him the Nikola Tesla of water, or they call him the water wizard. So he's worth a whole show, really. But the trout thing was interesting. He saw that they were still and without any motion at all. They were just sitting there. They weren't flapping their fins. They seemed to be motionless, but the energy of the water was coming down with a lot of power and force, and he wanted to know what are the mechanics and the physics behind how this fish looks like it's still in water, and it's just handling the pressure and the force of the stream. And I think he was analyzing the behavior of the snakes in the water as well, and how they don't have arms or legs or fins or anything, and they were just with ease going through this water without being affected by the force and the current, the power of the current. So he knew there was some kind of energy and force there he needed to get into, and he was really into vortexes and vortices and how nature uses that to generate energy, and he wanted to see what else he could apply that to. One famous story is about a prince who asked him if he could solve this problem moving a bunch of timber over this really rugged mountainous land. They were it's impossible for us to get it over there. But he found some meandering serpentine path that he would use, and he developed this wooden structure. I think they called it not a flask, but it kind of had a similar name and had sort of an egg shape to it. And they used that to move the wood, and those are some little highlights about him, but really interesting, fascinating dude. I think he eventually got caught up with some of the elites of the time and the industrialists of the time, and they tried to weed him out because he was basically going against everything they were saying in their system, and he wasn't good for business, I would say. Just like Nikola Tesla got tied up into some of those same monopoly men of the time. And eventually died penniless and said, they stole all my work. Victor Schauberger says, they stole all my work as well. I think his son and some other relatives continue his work. They have a museum so people can see what kind of research he was doing, some of his inventions. But yeah, it was all about harnessing the power that was already in nature present, free energy and stuff like that.
That's cool. It makes me think of so if a fish, they have fins and flaps. So is it airplanes and sailing, Bernoulli's? It's
Oh, you reminded me
except
that he was
with
obsessed with
water
implosion versus explosion, and everyone in the industry at the time thought exploding things was the way, but he saw these animals doing this thing that was more like an implosion, and that's what the fish are doing with that energy, and it's sort of cycling or spiraling in and right out to them. Some jujitsu stuff. and that's
Okay.
where the vortices come into play. Maybe the human body has the same thing going on. Some people say the heart is working in that same way. It's kind of like a torsion field. It's not just like this mechanical pump thing, but it's more of this like spiraling in and out kind of action, kind of like a vortex. So it's fascinating, and yeah, it deserves. I should do more research on it, but I never forgot about that guy. He's really interesting, especially with the water stuff. But I think he's just a kind of a more wide than just water. He's a Renaissance man of sorts.
Awesome.
Yeah. What do we think, guys?
I mean, I think a lot of things. I guess I just don't talk about the metaphysical in like an open. I don't know. It's just.
Yeah.
It's almost like talking about religion or talking about water.
Yeah.
Like it's.
I mean,
So anyway, but
as
no,
long as I
that's-
can see the proof in the pudding, I'm into it. Like, you could say it's metaphysics or religion, but if it has an actual cause and effect in real life that I can observe, feel, then I'm down with working with it or talking about it. But yeah, I don't like to get into the too deeply in the weeds of the woo-woo stuff, or this is just a belief or a feeling, because I don't know. I want to make stuff and build things and harness the benefits from that. And yeah, I think everybody does. I think it's a natural inclination we all have. Kids have it right out of the gate. They have this and this creative spark to go play with these things, see how it works. But eventually we get a little more retarded.
we get a little
Different things
stupider.
retard our thought processes and how we think creatively and stuff. We're like, I got to get a job. I just need to do these things, make money, do these checklists. And my brain turns into a checklist machine, a task machine. And you stop thinking about how a forest is magical or how, walking in the woods can be a magical, transformative, even religious or spiritual experience. Not to get all woo-woo and hippie on you.
So Flynn, where do we go buy bars of water?
Yeah, that's a great question. Something that will probably come up in our lifetime.
The vaults of water.
The vaults of water. Any final thoughts there, Freddie?
Man, water is really important. I don't know what to say. Like, I feel lucky to live in a place where there is an abundance of water. Not everybody has that. And I wonder sometimes, like, do they think about it? Like, people in areas of Arizona where there really is, like, there's not really a question. Like, it's a real limitation with an acceleration of use. It's like the opposite of reduce. It's increasing use. And oh, there is something I want to say. People always come for the farmers. What the fuck? Y'all don't eat? I mean, yes, a lot of water goes to agriculture. Are you kidding me? Like, of course. And at the same time, well, who eats that food? Like, yes, we can have a conversation all day about, like, we'll grow anything besides almonds, because almonds is super water intensive, in California. Okay, well, that's a good point. Good point.
Monoculture.
But look, it takes a lot of water to grow food. It takes a lot of water to have meat. Everybody eats. So, the solution is not to cut the farmers off from the water. That's not a solution. Like, people get enraged, they protest, like, the farmers are taking all the water. Well, yeah, and then you're eating it. So I just want to put that out there.
Totally.
It's like, it's not the farmers, y'all.
No, or it's not even just agriculture. There's different types of it too. Are they doing regenerative agriculture, or is it this large-scale industrial agriculture?
Farming could be improved, and I'm not submitting to anyone that there's no room for reducing and reusing in agriculture. But if we're going to talk about that, we're talking about how we all eat. We're not talking about what they do with our resources and stuff.
No, they're like our savior. We should be like holding them up on a pedestal.
We're going to need to have a conversation about what are we all doing so that everybody eats and everybody has water. And yeah, it takes a lot of water to get the food, more than it does to do your laundry or take a shower or, make some tea. That doesn't take a lot of water. It takes a lot of water to grow the food. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I was talking about the rice farmers in South Texas. So shout out to them.
Word.
Yeah, word.
Lionel, any final thoughts?
We are mostly water. Our bodies thrives on it. The earth, they say, is mostly water. Maybe. I haven't measured the whole thing. It looks pretty waterful, though. Waterful. Yeah, that's it. It's sacred. Maybe we wouldn't be here without it. Probably spawned all the other life that spawned us eventually. So it's going to be here. Even if we die out because we don't use it intelligently and we waste it all, it's going to continue and some other life will emerge because of it. And that's it. Hopefully that doesn't happen.
Hopefully not.
That's why we're having this conversation.
Yep.
For the future generations.
Absolutely. So I want to thank you guys for sharing your time with this podcast. Freddy Alexander, thanks so much.
Thanks, Flynn. I appreciate the time here for sure. Great conversation.
Absolutely. Lionel Gonzalez, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Let's do it again sometime.
Definitely. And for anybody who has any thoughts about what we've talked about or any new thoughts, please leave comments below, and we'll talk to you soon.